Have you ever walked into a courtroom only to realize the trial wasn't about truth, but loyalty? What if the judge had already scripted the ending before you uttered a single word? Today, we follow Pam Bondi, stepping into a legal trap masked as justice, flipping the entire script. This isn't just a hearing, it's a reckoning. At 6:21 a.m., Pam's phone lit up. No caller ID, no emojis, just one sterile message. It's not a hearing, it's a setup. Guess who's directing? She read it twice, then again. Barefoot on the cool tile floor of her Philadelphia brownstone kitchen, Pam stood frozen. Outside, the city was still asleep, but someone had already lit the fuse. She knew exactly who was directing. Only one name carried that much political theater and legal menace: Judge Tanya Chutkin. Chutkin, a jurist famous less for weighing law than for weighing loyalty. A judge whose supposed neutrality sliced like a guillotine's blade. She didn't merely preside, she performed. And if your values rhymed with Florida or 2020, God help you. Pam exhaled slowly, leaning on the kitchen counter. No coffee yet. Only a silence so sharp it made her spine tingle. A folded government envelope lay on the table. Notice of administrative contempt. The heading screamed bureaucracy, but promised pain. $1,200 fine. Optional reprimand? Optional. Not in Chutkin's courtroom. Optional meant we'll see how well you beg. She opened the envelope again. No crime, no complaint. Just lateness. 7 minutes late to a procedural hearing the week before. But in D.C. these days, lateness wasn't about time. It was a trigger. Pam had seen enough of these setups to know that in the Capitol, no paper was just paper. Every stamp carried a message, every memo a motive, and this one wasn't whispering, it was screaming. Her phone buzzed again. This time the voice was familiar, an insider still buried deep within DOJ. "Today's the day," they said. "They're going for the funds, retroactive legal defense accounts tied to Trump's circle, Navarro Meadows, and yes, you, Pam." She didn't blink. "Let me guess," she said, sliding her blazer off the hook. "Chutkin's name is on page 1? "Top line," the voice confirmed. Then silence. No goodbye, no luck. No time for pleasantries when due process was being dressed in costume. Pam straightened her jacket. Today wasn't a courtroom visit. It was a set walkthrough. The lights were already on, the script already written. They expected her to read her lines. She smiled faintly, whispering, "Let's rewrite the scene." She sat in the back of the SUV, seatbelt clicked, coffee untouched. The government-issued envelope rested in her lap like a paper-thin guillotine. Violation. Administrative contempt. The phrase sounded harmless enough, like a parking ticket from hell. Except in Pam Bondi's world, nothing mailed from a federal courthouse arrived without intent. The fine, $1,200. The offense, tardiness. The catch, optional reprimand. In Washington speak, optional translated to, "We'll see how useful it is to humiliate you on camera." Her fingers clenched the folder. The document was crisp, bureaucratic, and suspiciously vague. No mention of warnings, no procedural breakdown. Just one line citing her being 7 minutes late to a calendar hearing. 7 minutes. And yet the stakes felt seismic. The driver turned off Market Street and Pam leaned back, scrolling through her phone's contacts, not to call, just to confirm she wasn't alone. Ironically, that made it worse. 2 years ago, defending a client in federal court meant advocating law. Now it meant surviving politics. Her phone rang again. Same unlisted number, same low, urgent voice, laced with fatigue. "It's not just you," he said. "They've pulled in 6 others this week, all tied to post-election legal work." Pam didn't interrupt. She knew better than to cut in. "Legal defense funds. That's the play. Retroactive targeting. They're going after anyone who drafted, advised, or even reviewed memos for Trump after November 2020. Navarro, Meadows, even interns are flagged. Chutkin? Pam asked flatly. Top of the chain, green lit. This isn't about court protocol, the voice said. It's about kneecapping what's left of the resistance. Pam nodded slowly, eyes on the courthouse outline in the distance. You said 6 others, she murmured. 3 former DOJ officials, a private attorney from Arizona, a clerk from a Michigan election integrity group, a Florida law professor who wrote a legal blog post they didn't like, all got administrative violation notices in the last 10 days. None formally charged. But that wasn't the point. The point was optics. Paper trails designed to whisper doubt. Legal process as political punishment. Pam's mind shifted gears. She tapped her laptop open, fingers flying, pulling up open court dockets and recent filings. There it was. Case number 24, Act 1765, Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Judge of record, Tanya S. Chutkin. Classification, administrative contempt. Appearance delay penalty, up to $1,500 plus reprimand. She scanned the history. No pretrial conference logged, no preliminary notice. They didn't want to warn her. They wanted to catch her off balance, on camera. A headline halfway written, Trump-era official sanctioned for ignoring court. Neat, clean, deceptive. That's the formula now. Dress ambush in paperwork, wrap suppression in a legal envelope, pretend it's all due process. Pam closed the laptop, eyes narrowing. The SUV slowed before the courthouse steps. Local reporters milled nearby, badges flipped over, eyes scanning black SUVs. She didn't flinch. She adjusted her collar. Get ready, she said, almost to herself. This isn't a hearing, it's a performance review. The driver opened her door. Outside, the air was brisk, tinged with pre-rain electricity and subtle tension. A breeze lifted her coat edges, but Pam held her footing, because she knew something they didn't. They weren't summoning her to justice. They were summoning her to break quietly, efficiently, legally. But Pam had no intention of playing along. She didn't come to beg. She came to bring the camera something they weren't expecting. Not a defendant. A whistleblower. As her heels clicked across the pavement, a countdown echoed. Tick, 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 showtime. This, Pam said, voice steady, is a complete log of administrative sanctions handed down over the past year by this court, along with metadata showing patterns of enforcement. She paused, eyes scanning the room, every person hanging on her words. The clerk hesitated, then inserted the USB into the court's laptop. A projection screen flickered alive behind Judge Chutkin. Rows of spreadsheets, case numbers, names, dates, and, most damningly, patterns emerged. The screen revealed a meticulous pattern of selective enforcement. Every violation for late arrival was overwhelmingly from one political camp. The courtroom murmured, but Chutkin's face was carved into an unreadable mask. Pam's gaze locked onto the judge's, unblinking. Your Honor, she continued, these are not isolated incidents. They represent a systematic effort to silence dissent under the guise of judicial authority. A staffer in the back, still filming, zoomed in as Pam's voice rose just slightly, fueled not by anger, but righteous clarity. This court's administrative contempt citations are weaponized. They serve as a theater of intimidation. Memos like these are designed to harass, disrupt, and delegitimize those who challenge the prevailing political narrative. The judge shifted in her chair, clearing her throat as if to speak. But Pam anticipated. Before Your Honor dismisses this as a conspiracy, let's examine the timing. Each sanction corresponds directly with key legal actions opposing the current administration's agenda. Coincidence? I think not. Chutkin's fingers tapped lightly on the desk, the only sound besides the hum of the projector. Miss Bondi, the court will not be lectured on its internal procedures. Timeliness is a basic expectation. Your tardiness is inexcusable. Pam smiled faintly, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. I don't dispute the importance of punctuality, but when timing is selectively enforced to punish political opponents and shield allies, it ceases to be a neutral rule. It becomes a political weapon. The courtroom air thickened. Reporters poised their pens. Cameras clicked softly. Even some staffers shifted uneasily in their seats. Pam felt it too, the tension between what was spoken and what was understood. Let me be clear, Pam pressed on. This hearing is not about a missed appointment. It's about the erosion of judicial impartiality, about turning a blind eye to selective enforcement that chills legal advocacy. Chutkin's voice sharpened. Enough, Miss Bondi. This court's orders are clear. Administrative contempt carries penalties designed to uphold respect for the judiciary. And yet, Pam countered, respect must be earned through fairness, not fear, through justice, not showmanship. Her gaze swept the room. I am not here to evade accountability. I am here to hold this court accountable for the politics masquerading as jurisprudence. The judge's composure flickered, subtle, but noticeable. Miss Bondi, your statements are bordering on insubordination. Pam leaned forward, voice calm but resolute. If exposing political manipulation is insubordination, then I wear that charge with honor. Suddenly, the courtroom doors creaked open. A wave of additional spectators poured in, lawyers, activists, former colleagues, silent but unmistakably supportive. Pam's insider contact from DOJ gave her a slight nod from the back. Chutkin's eyes narrowed. The room was no longer a controlled stage. It was becoming a battleground. Miss Bondi, Chutkin said, voice colder, the court will recess for 15 minutes to consider this revelation. Pam nodded, gathering her folder. As she turned, she caught the flash of a camera capturing every movement, every expression. This was no longer just a courtroom. It was a public reckoning. Outside, news vans already buzzed. The word was out. Pam Bondi wasn't just fighting a fine. She was fighting a rigged system. The buzz was electric. Legal experts tweeted, commentators debated, and social media exploded with questions about judicial bias and political retribution. Back inside, Pam took a breath. This fight was bigger than her, bigger than anyone hearing. It was a fight for the integrity of the entire justice system. As the judge's gavel hit the desk to signal recess, Pam whispered to herself, "The script is cracked. Now we rewrite the ending." The courtroom emptied quickly during recess, but the tension lingered like a storm cloud. Pam stood just outside the chamber, eyes closed for a moment, steadying herself. Reporters crowded near the doors, eager for a soundbite. But Pam wasn't here to give interviews. She was here to fight. Her legal team gathered silently around her, exchanging terse nods. The air smelled faintly of old wood and cold leather, a stark contrast to the heat brewing in the courtroom. A senior attorney whispered, "The judge isn't used to this kind of pushback. She's rattled." Pam nodded. "Good. It means we're making an impact." Minutes later, the judge returned, her face unreadable but her eyes sharper. The spectators reassembled, and the room fell into a hush. After careful consideration, Judge Chutkin began, this court recognizes the concerns raised regarding administrative contempt procedures. However, the court also acknowledges the importance of maintaining decorum and punctuality in legal proceedings. She paused, then looked directly at Pam. Therefore, the court will defer penalties related to the cited incidents pending a formal review of administrative practices. A low murmur ran through the courtroom. Pam allowed herself a small, controlled smile. It wasn't a victory, but it was a crack in the fortress. "Miss Bondi," the judge continued, "you are expected to comply fully with court procedures going forward." "Absolutely, Your Honor," Pam replied, "and I look forward to a transparent process." As the session ended, the energy in the room shifted. Pam's allies exchanged glances. This was just the beginning. Outside, the media frenzy intensified. Headlines questioned the fairness of the judiciary. Commentators praised Pam's boldness. Legal watchdogs mobilized, calling for investigations into selective enforcement. Pam's phone buzzed, a message from an anonymous source deep within the court system. "You've opened Pandora's box. Keep pushing." She felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about one case. It was about restoring balance to a system teetering on the edge of politicization. Back at her office, Pam sat down to draft a comprehensive report detailing the findings. Each word was carefully chosen, every argument backed by data. This report would be her weapon, her manifesto for change. Late into the night, she worked under the harsh glow of her desk lamp, knowing that tomorrow the fight would continue, not just in this courtroom, but across the nation. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Pam's report leaked to the press, igniting a firestorm of public debate. Editorials slammed the judiciary's opaque procedures, while watchdog groups demanded accountability. Social media exploded with calls for reform. Pam's phone never stopped ringing. Inside the courthouse, the pressure mounted. Judge Chutkin faced mounting scrutiny from her peers and political figures alike. The judge's earlier firmness began to waver, replaced by cautious pragmatism. Pam stood firm, attending meetings with legal reform committees, testifying before panels, and giving interviews that resonated with citizens tired of injustice. Then came the pivotal hearing, a full procedural review mandated by the court. The room was packed, every seat taken by advocates, skeptics, and media personnel. Pam presented her case with a poised confidence born of meticulous preparation. She exposed systemic inconsistencies, selective enforcement, and the dangers of unchecked administrative power. Her voice carried the weight of not just one lawyer's fight, but a growing movement for fairness. Opposing counsel tried to discredit her, labeling her methods as disruptive, but Pam remained unshaken, responding with facts, logic, and unwavering conviction. When the judge delivered her ruling, the courtroom held its breath. "In light of the evidence presented," Judge Chutkin announced, "this court orders a thorough overhaul of its administrative procedures to ensure transparency, fairness, and accountability. Effective immediately, no sanction shall be imposed without clear, consistent guidelines." The room erupted. Pam allowed herself a rare smile, a hard-won victory, but more importantly, a precedent for justice. As the crowd dispersed, Pam was approached by a young law student, eyes wide with admiration. "Thank you for standing up," the student said quietly. "You've inspired me to fight for change." Pam nodded, feeling the weight and hope of that moment. The fight was far from over, but today, a spark had been lit. Walking out into the sunlight, she knew this victory wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who believed the law should serve justice, not politics. And with that, Pam Bondi's battle was only just beginning.